There are lots of things you can do to get more familiar with your materials and your journaling style and your watercolors. One thing that I recommend very strongly is learning all the strokes that your brushes can do. Take one of your nice round brushes, one with a good point and one that will hold a lot of water, and just see what you can do with it. Makes a nice broken effect when you rub it over the paper, flat to the paper, like that, like the sparkle of light on water. You can vary your line width. It's an extremely versatile tool once you learn how to use it the way that you want to. Different people, of course, do different things. That could be the foliage of the top of a tree with a few extra little leaves coming out the sides. This is a nice big, let's see, what is it? A number 10 brush. So you can cover a lot in a single stroke. But with a good point like this, you can also make some very fine details. Extremely versatile. Now then, try the same thing with a flat brush. Sometimes people think that flat brushes can only make flat regimented marks. Let's turn this so you can see better. Like that. They are very useful for making flat washes, by the way. But you still have to pick up that little bit of wet in the corner or it will make a back run. But that's not all that a flat brush can do. You can use the corner for details. You can use the edge. It's got kind of a lot of paint in it, so you're getting a bigger mark, but can't you just see a picket fence there? Or possibly lines in the side of a building. And of course you can also get nicely dry brushed areas. Maybe the effect of water ripples. So just try out your brush and see what you can do with it. See how many different marks you can make. You can even make a circle, I think. Yep, close to it anyway, just by turning your brush in a circle. They're very versatile. I like to carry both up with me. Did I say dry brush? I did indeed. And of course, if your brush were really dry, you couldn't actually make a mark with it. Like that. So what you do is you load your brush and then get most of the moisture out of the body of it. And then it depends on the kinds of strokes you use. This is a dry brush effect. Scraping across your paper, holding the brush very flat to it, gives you a dry brush effect. Or you can spread the hairs like this and stroke the paper lightly, and that's another kind of dry brush effect. It can be very useful for painting lines in hair or fur or, well, use your imagination. You'll think of plenty of ideas. Another good tool is painting wet and wet. It's a little trickier, and I'll admit that. But it can be very useful as well. A lot of artists pre-wet their paper, and here's another use for the little sprayer. I'm pre-wetting that fairly smoothly. And now I'm going to spread the water evenly to make sure that I've got it well covered. And then, well, let's use a nice bold phthalo. See how it spreads softly in that wet area? And you can continue to work into this as it dries and get soft blending. As it begins to lose its shine, you're going to be able to add details, especially if you mix your paint rather thickly. And you can just continue to do this until your paper is entirely dry. As I say, it's a little trickier and it requires a bit of patience, which is not my long suit. I don't know about you, but it can be extremely interesting. Look at the way it's spreading up into the texture of the paper here. I see moss, I see tree bark, all sorts of fun things. Give it a try. Remember I told you I was going to show you several things we could do with the little sprayer. Let's try mixing a nice strong green here. And I'm just putting down a patch of color. Now I'm going to hit the edge of it with the spray. And see, it kind of crawls out to meet the little wet edges. If you put some more down here, you can tip it and let it flow. And you can paint into that edge again and let it crawl out into it. See, like it's doing right there? This can be kind of neat for trees or tide pool, algae. And you can just continue to let it flow down the page if you like drips, which I do. Come on, drip. Come on, drip. There you go. It can make some interesting effects. And I'm going to make a stronger one with ultramarine and, phthalo and burnt sienna. We'll just put a patch of that here. Hope you can see that. And I'm going to let it lose its shine a bit and then give it a shot of spray and you'll see an entirely different effect. Okay, it is starting to lose its shine. See, it makes a texture similar to salt even. And you can make larger spatters with a brush loaded with clear water. And again, that makes an effect similar to salt. So you might want to give that a try. Here you can see how these turned out when they dried. I made a darker area here and again sprayed it, and the spray made sort of a bunch of tiny little spatters up here, and I blotted it a bit. So you can see that you can get some interesting textures with this technique. Sometimes you're going to want to try different textural effects. Plastic wrap works well. Waxed paper makes a more subtle effect, which I actually like quite a bit better. So we're going to play with both of those that work well for backgrounds and such. And first, the plastic wrap. I'm going to again make a nice rich mixture so that you can see better what effects we'll get. But this will work with any color. Use whatever you like. This is phthalo blue and burnt sienna again. And just make a nice big patch of color to play with. And we'll try several different things. Now while that's wet, put your sheet of plastic wrap right down on it. And you can push it around however you want it, press it in. We're going to leave that for only a minute on one side, and we're going to peel the other side back to see what happens when you want a variety of effects. And while that is working, I'll make another patch for the waxed paper. Nice rich brown this time. Using very strong colors here so that you can really see the effect. Okay, now waxed paper gives you a more subtle effect. We'll just fold that back, and now we're going to fold back half of the plastic wrap and fold back half of the waxed paper. Oops, come on. You see it's very much more subtle there than it will be when it dries, so we'll just let that sit for a bit. Some people allow this to dry even overnight in place, and you will get a different effect that way too, but I like it a bit more subtle, so we'll peel this away after just, less than 5 minutes really, but still you can see how much difference there is between the sheet that stayed in place and that was lifted. And the same situation here, quite a bit different. Now then, we'll try one other thing with the wax paper that I quite like. Let's make yet another patch of good strong color. Maybe I'll variegate this one for interest. Ooh, that's pretty. Colorful. Now, I'm going to wad the wax paper and then do the same thing we did before. Let's see. And you'll see that the effect is quite different. I'm holding it down for just a little bit of time for the maximum effect, even if I'm going to lift it off. It really makes an interesting look, doesn't it? Okay, and now I'll pull that back almost immediately, and it makes a softer effect, and we'll allow that to dry for a minute or two on the outside. Now let's see what effect we get when we've allowed that to sit in place. Pressed it down a couple of times. Oh, that's very interesting. Look how much stronger and crisper the textural effects are. Wow. Another good technique for making texture is blotting. And you may need this for a number of reasons. I often do when I've made a mistake I want to get rid of quickly, or when I just want to change the value of something. A quick blot with a Kleenex changes the effect quite a bit. And you'll be surprised to see how much difference it makes if your Kleenex is wet than if it's dry. This is a wet one, and that's a dry one. Quite a bit closer to getting it back to the clear paper. One thing I love about Strathmore papers, by the way, is that they are tough, and they'll take a lot of scrubbing and lifting. I can probably take that almost back to white paper with a single wipe. Isn't that amazing?